Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel for a book haul. So a small apology for the fact that I haven't been able to upload as much in the past month and a half. It's just been so busy, what with the release of my novel and the fact that I've been on deadline for my next children's book, which I have now passed. So I am hoping to film a little bit more in October, and I thought I would kick things off by sharing with you all the books I've amassed in the past month and a half, because there's quite a few. I have been sent a ton by publishers, I guess because this is the time of year where you get a real influx of releases. September is one of the biggest months in the UK for book releases, and ARCs are starting to come out for books that are released in early 2022. I also went to London with my boyfriend to visit some of my friends and family, and I did end up picking up a few books while I was there. So I have a bit of a London book haul as well as a publishing ARC review copy book haul, and I thought, you know, it's time to share them because the pile is growing. And yeah, I'm gonna show you them now because I have been rambling on for far too long already. So I'm actually going to start with the books that were sent to me by publishers or authors, because I have a couple that I'm particularly excited about and really just want to like talk about first. So the first one of those is this middle grade fairy tale collection, spooky fairy tale collection as well, so perfect for October, which is The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers and Other Gruesome Tales by Jen Campbell and illustrated by Adam D'Souza. So this is a book that I've actually had the pleasure of reading stories from already. Jen is one of my very, very good friends. She's one of my best friends in the whole world, so sometimes I do, you know, get a little insight into her writing progress as it's going on, and I have been so eagerly anticipating this novel, or well, short story collection, ever since she started writing it and started talking about it, because these are such incredible fairy tales. They span from across the world. Like, we have fairy tales here that include Inuit, Japanese, Irish, Spanish, Chinese, German, Russian, and quite a few others as well, and they're all creepy, which is something I love. I love a kind of spooky, creepy fairy tale, and it sort of goes to show that there's all of these different sort of creepy fairy tales from around the world. Like, this is a phenomenon that is very widespread, and I know Jen spent a lot of time picking them and then writing them in her own very eloquent style. Jen is a gorgeous writer, and I don't just say that as her friend, I say that as also a fan. And then the fact that they've been paired with Adam D'Souza's illustrations is incredible, because they match so incredibly perfectly. I cannot tell you, it is a stunning collection, and I can't wait to now read them with the accompanying illustrations. This is published by Thames and Hudson, and it's actually out this week, so you can either pre-order a copy a couple of days in advance or get it on release day. I think this is one that a lot of younger readers are going to enjoy. I know I, as like a child in sort of the middle grade age range, really adored creepy fairy tales, but I actually think adults are going to enjoy this one a lot as well. We then have a book that was sent to me by the author because it's self-published, and that is Torn by Jasmine Watson. So this is a book I have been eagerly anticipating for a few months now. I follow Jasmine over on TikTok, and she's been talking about her novel for obviously a little while, since she announced its upcoming release, and it's finally out. It's here in the world. You can buy it as well, and let me tell you, this just sounds absolutely spectacular. I mean, first of all, beautiful cover, let's just acknowledge that. It's always really important. This is designed by Sarah Oliver, so yes, Sarah, well done. But the book itself is the first in a series called The Verse of Grimm, and it's a book inspired by sort of like fairy tale elements about a world separated in two. So there's a world where there is magic, and there's a world where there is not magic, and there is a young woman from the world of non-magic who is the only one that can save the world of magic, but she is in complete denial that that is in existence. So it's about her travelling there, encountering all these creatures, and having this burden laid on her shoulders of having to, you know, save this entire realm. And I am so excited. The reviews have been coming in thick and fast, and it sounds fantastic. I really want to read it this month and share with you my own thoughts too. Okay, but I did say I was sent a lot of books by publishers, and that is true because I actually have this entire stack as well to show you. So let's just go through them at random as they appear. The first one is a thriller called The Hiding Place by Jenny Quintana. This is published by Pan Macmillan, and I am so buzzed for this, mainly because I am in such a thriller mood at the moment. I have just binge read 3 thrillers back to back and adored them, and I really want to find new favourite thriller authors. So this is about Marina, who was abandoned as a baby in the hallway of a shared house in London. Nobody, including Marina herself, knows anything about her past, but she is now an adult and has returned to the house where it all started, determined to find out who she really is. I love that kind of premise. I love thrillers where someone is trying to learn something about their past and it may lead them into a kind of dangerous situation, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. We then have a proof of a book which is out later this month, and that is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. So everybody adores T.J. Klune. I know this, he is raved about across BookTube, Book Talk, where have you. And I haven't actually read any of their books yet, so I'm really excited to have a proof of their new book, especially given that their previous book, well, I think they've written a few, but the one that's been super duper popular, The House on the Cerulean Sea, something along those lines, is the book that my Patreon book club and I have chosen for the next 3 months. So if you're interested in buddy reading that and then also engaging and watching a discussion video that I'll be filming about it at the end of the year, then I'll link my Patreon down below. But yeah, so I am now going to be hopefully binging a little bit of TJ Klune because I'm so sure I'm going to love his work. It's meant to be very like hope punk, very hope filled, very like adult and serious, but also just with these undercurrents of joy, and that is exactly what I want from my fantasy at the moment. I don't want grimdark, although this is one that definitely deals with grief and the afterlife, so it is going to be, like I said, serious and touch on more serious issues, but I think with that kind of writing which is just like full of warm fuzzies, so can't wait. We then have another thriller, but this time a YA thriller, and that is The Woods Are Always Watching by Stephanie Perkins. So I know a lot of you probably know Stephanie Perkins from her Anna and the French Kiss series, which I never read because I'm not really that into YA contemporary, but I have read Stephanie Perkins' other YA thriller and I really enjoyed it. It was a really fast-paced slasher horror novel, a little bit like a Scream film, and therefore when Pan Macmillan offered to send me a copy of her latest book, I of course absolutely jumped at the chance. This is actually about two friends who recently left high school and now are in university, which I think is fantastic because I don't read a lot of YA or new adult that deals with that age range. Anyway, as you can tell from the cover and the title, this is about some creepy woods. The two friends go on a hike and end up encountering some dangerous, potentially spooky creatures. Is it paranormal, is it not? I don't know. Angry Robot were then very kind enough to send me The Cabinet by Eun-soo Kim, which is a translated Korean novel, and the translator is Sean Lynn Halbert. I am so excited for this. This sounds so interesting, and I am always on the hunt for more translated Korean literature in particular. So the blurb reads, "Cabinet 13 looks exactly like any normal filing cabinet. Except this cabinet is filled with files on the symptomers, people whose weird abilities and bizarre experiences might just mark the emergence of a new species." Does this sound a little bit X-Men already? I'm here for it. But to Mr. Kong, the harried office worker who spends his days looking after the cabinet, the symptomers are just a headache. From the woman whose doppelganger broke up with her boyfriend to the man with a ginkgo tree growing from his fingertip. And then there's that guy who won't stop calling, asking to be turned into a cat. A richly funny and fantastical novel about the strangeness at the heart of even the most ordinary lives from one of South Korea's most acclaimed novelists. That just sounds so good and I am so excited to read it, plus stunning cover again, always worth noting. We then have a short story collection which was sent to me by Canongate. This one comes out on the 28th of October and it's called Cosmogramma by Cortia Newland. This is a collection of speculative sort of SFF short stories which envisage an alternative future as lived by the African diaspora, which I just think sounds really interesting. I love a bit of a speculative short story collection, so looking forward to checking this one out. Then from Picador I have Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, a memoir. So this is a non-fiction book, a memoir obviously, about the author who grew up Asian American, straddling the boundaries of both her cultures, her parents' expectations, and also the expectations of the country that she lived in, as well as the grief and loss she went through when her mother had cancer. So I think this one's going to be quite an emotional memoir, but I hear wonderful things about the writing and I'm really keen to read it. Then we have one I know you're all going to be super excited for, because I definitely was, and that is the 25th anniversary special edition of The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, not only am I super excited to have this because I adore Madeline Miller and I adore Greek myth retellings, but I didn't actually own a copy of this book. So I now do. And I own obviously a very beautiful one now, so I'm very, very grateful to Bloomsbury for having sent me this. It's stunning. And it even had a lovely little note from Madeline Miller inside it, which was lovely. You may or may not know that I actually interviewed Madeline Miller about her book Circe on my podcast. She was so incredible to talk to, so insightful, and hearing her speak really added extra layers to that novel for me. So if you're interested in that, I will again link it down below, and I will also mention that my podcast season 5 is actually starting up this month, so stay tuned. But I'm really excited to have this beautiful, beautiful copy of The Song of Achilles, which is obviously a Greek myth retelling of the Trojan War, focusing in on Achilles and Patroclus' love story. Then we have a play by Kay Tempest called Paradise. So Kay Tempest is one of my favourite poets of all time. They also have written novels and plays for the stage, and this is their latest play. It was sent to me again by Picador. And to top it all off, it's a retelling of Greek myths. So Kay Tempest has dealt with themes of Greek mythology in a few of her previous poetry collections and plays, so I know from experience how skilled they are at working with those themes, and this is the story of Philoctetes, who lives in a cave on a desolate island. So yeah, really excited to read this one, and I would love to see it performed, hopefully one day. Then we have a proof copy of Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? This one actually doesn't come out until March next year, so it's a little while to wait, but I plan on reading it before then so I can share with you my thoughts because it sounds brilliant. Let me just read the back for you because I think that's what sold me on it. Husband, a male partner in a marriage, e.g. Yinka's younger sister Kemi is married to Uchi. 2. A non-existent man in a non-existent marriage whose whereabouts is often asked about, usually by Nigerian mums and aunties to single British Nigerian women, e.g. So Yinka, tell me, where's your husband? You're 31 now. So I believe this is about a young Nigerian British woman who is 30 years old, and everyone has these expectations of her to marry at this point, but she's not there yet. She's living her life, and I think this would be considered a sort of comedic contemporary novel about a young Nigerian woman in Britain's life, so I'm really excited to read this one. I can't believe I'm still not through all of the books I was sent by publishers, but there's only 2 more. The next one is a middle grade fantasy novel which I have been eagerly anticipating, and that is Fireborn, book 1 in the 12 and the Frozen Forest series by Aisling Fowler. So this was sent to me by HarperCollins, and it is about a young woman named 12. I don't know if that's like her birth name or just the name she takes on when she takes on a new role in this fantasy society, which is to learn and train to fight monsters and keep the people in her sort of walled city safe. So she joins this guard effectively, but she ends up going against the grain and what the guard is supposed to do when she decides to set off adventuring to find a missing girl that was abducted by a monster. So everyone else just wants to let it go, but she refuses to, and it's about her journey. I am very excited to see what this sort of like wolf made out of rock is all about as well. The sort of fantastical imagery on the front here has me super excited, and I love middle grade fantasy. Then last but not least, for books sent to me by publishers, we have this non-fiction book which was sent to me by Thames and Hudson called Black Artists Shaping the World by Sharna Jackson. So this is, as the title explains, a look at various different black artists across the world right now and their art. How it is sort of, you know, taking inspiration from past culture but also sort of doing new and innovative things for the modern day. So these are some of the artists included in here, and there's so many different styles. Like, I've had a flick through this and I love the diversity and variety in the art in here. It's gorgeous. I do adore books like this. I think, having been raised by a mother who went to art college and is really into art and has a lot of art books, I do really gravitate towards books like this, and I think this is just going to be a really nice one to pore over and discover new artists myself and learn a little bit about what they're doing right now in the modern world. So yeah, I'm super excited to flick through this, and I think this is going to be a really nice Christmas present, so this may be putting aside for the Christmas gift guide. Then that brings me to the books I actually bought. Well, actually I have one book I didn't buy myself because it was a gift, so I'll share that with you. This one was a gift from my lovely boyfriend. When we were in London together, he spotted this in Forbidden Planet, sneakily sort of took it to the till and bought it without telling me, then gave it to me, which was so kind of him because this is just everything I look for in a book, and he knows me well. It's called Damnable Tales, a folk horror anthology, selected and illustrated by Richard Wells, and it's pretty self-explanatory. These are creepy folk tales as retold by a variety of different authors. So we have Shirley Jackson in here, we have M.R. James, we have Robert Louis Stevenson, we have Fiona MacLeod. Lots of recognisable authors in the horror genre all collected together in one place. So I am so excited for this because I know I already love some of these authors, like Shirley Jackson, but I'm also probably going to discover new authors via this collection, which I always love. Then I confess myself to having gone a bit ham in Forbidden Planet, so I really miss the London Forbidden Planet. It is huge and it has this massive selection of sci-fi and fantasy books, especially ones that are sometimes not published in the UK, so they'll have like US editions, they'll have books that I just don't see other places in stores, so I always want to take advantage of it. Plus they had a bunch of discounts on books I was interested in, so I think every single book here had money off it, which meant I just couldn't leave it behind. I had to like fulfill that Forbidden Planet love whilst I had the chance, because it's probably going to be a while before I visit again. The first one I picked up is The Winter Garden, which yes drew me in because of the cover. It's beautiful, and this is a fantastical novel about Beatrice. On the night her mother dies, 8-year-old Beatrice receives an invitation to the mysterious Winter Garden, a place of wonder and magic filled with all manner of strange and sublime flora and fauna. The garden is her solace every night for 7 days, but when the garden disappears and no one believes her story, Beatrice is left to wonder if it was truly real. 18 years later, on the eve of her wedding to a man her late father approved of but she does not love, Beatrice makes the decision to throw off the expectations of Victorian English society and search for the garden. When both she and her closest friend Rosa receive invitations to compete to create a spectacular pleasure gardens, with the prize being one life-changing wish, she realises she may be closer to finding it than she ever imagined. Now all she has to do is win. That just sounded so fantastic and like nothing I've read before. I love Victorian historical novels with a fantastical twist, and I think it'll be interesting to see how this manages the friendship between the two characters, given that they're being pitted against one another. So yes, I cannot wait for this. We then have one that was just literally in the sale. It had been reduced from £12.99 to £4.99, and it's a fairy tale retelling. So I thought, hey, I'm going to pick it up. This is by Sarah Pinborough, who I believe has written a bunch of sort of wicked dark retellings of fairy tales, and I've never read any, so I decided to pick this one up, which is Poison, and this is a retelling of Snow White but with a very dark twist. It's not very long, so I'm hoping to read this one soon and hopefully I'll enjoy it because I do love a fairy tale retelling. We then have a book I'd never heard of, but sounded absolutely brilliant. This is a YA novel called The Lost Girls, a vampire revenge story by Sonia Hartle. So this, and this just sounds fantastic, is about a girl who falls in love with a boy and lets him turn her into a vampire, thinking they're going to spend the rest of eternity together. But after a few months, he ditches her and she goes looking for him, only to discover she is not the first girl he's done this to. So he's just been living for centuries, falling in love with girls, turning them into vampires, and then chickening out and running away and leaving them as vampires, and they decide to band together to take revenge. And this just sounds so brilliant. It's like a fun take on vampires as well as an exploration of sort of toxic relationships and female friendship, and I cannot wait to read it. Then we have a super weird one which I'd never heard of but couldn't resist, which is called Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls, and this is published by Faber. It had £1 off, so that was another good excuse. And this is about Dorothy, who is a grieving housewife in the California suburbs, mourning the death of her young son and a recent miscarriage. Her husband is unfaithful, but they are too unhappy to get a divorce. One day, she is doing chores when she hears strange voices on the radio announcing that a green-skinned sea monster has escaped from the Institute for Oceanographic Research. But little does she expect him to arrive in her kitchen. Muscular, vegetarian, sexually magnetic, and excellent at housework, Larry the Frogman is a revelation, and their passionate affair takes him on a journey beyond their wildest dreams. Tell me this does not remind you of The Shape of Water. Like, that has major Shape of Water vibes to me, and I love Shape of Water, so I can't wait to read this. We then, lastly for Forbidden Planet bargains, have In the Watchful City by S. Kwai Lu, and this is one of the Tor novellas from the Tor novella series. So I adore the Tor novella series. It's a series of novellas in the SFF genres that Tor publish, quite often by sort of new and debut authors, but they do continue to publish authors who are published elsewhere as well, and I have discovered some of my favourite science fiction and fantasy authors through that series, so I wanted to pick up a new one, and this one sounded particularly intriguing. It's about Anima, who is an extrasensory human tasked with surveying and protecting Aura's citizens via a complex living network called Gleaming. Although Air World is restricted to what A can see and experience through the gleaming, Anima takes pride and comfort in keeping Aura safe from harm. When a mysterious outsider enters the city carrying a cabinet of curiosities from around the world with a story attached to each item, Anima's world expands beyond the borders of Aura to places and possibilities A never before imagined to exist. This also features a non-binary protagonist, which I love to see, and I have to say the Tor novella series is fantastic for being very inclusive of the LGBTQ+ community across that range of letters and beyond, so I'm super excited to read something with a non-binary protagonist because I don't find a lot of SFF novels that do feature that. Naturally, I also had to pay a visit to one of my favourite bookshops of all time, and that is Gaze the Word, where I picked up 2 books. So first of all, we have a book which I keep thinking is called Queer Poets of Colour, but strangely the large text is actually the subtitle. The title is Nepantla, an anthology edited by Christopher Soto, with the subtitle Queer Poets of Colour. But I guess this tells you more what you're getting, so that's why it's larger. And this is a collection of poetry I've been meaning to pick up for ages. My friend Jen raves about it and I thoroughly trust her opinion on when it comes to poetry. Plus it's always just really nice to read more queer poets, and this obviously specifically collects together queer poets of colour. And I always find anthologies a great way to discover new favourite poets, because although with any anthology you may not love every poem, the likelihood that you'll love some is there, and that means you have places to go next and poets to learn about and research and dive into, so cannot wait to read this. Then a completely random book which I'd never heard of before but loved the sound of. I found this in the lesbian section of Gaze the Word, although I think it's probably better described as just like the women loves women section of Gaze the Word, because they're not all books about lesbians, some are bi, some are pan. And this is Dead Dead Girls by Nekesa Afia, a Harlem Renaissance mystery. This is set in 1920s Harlem about a young flapper who ends up having to solve a mystery and who's also queer, which yes, I am so here for. Then we have a book I didn't pick up in London but I pre-ordered because I was super excited about, and that is Lord of Eternal Night by Ben Alderson. And I absolutely love everything Ben does, but this is also his first like truly smutty novel, which I'm very excited about. It is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but with gay vampires. And like, do you need to know anything else but that? It sounds brilliant, and he has been talking about it for a while online and getting me really excited, so I know I'm going to be reading this one very, very soon. I did actually pre-order one other book that was coming out in September, and that is The Women of Troy by Pat Barker. Nobody's surprised I pre-ordered this. I adored Pat Barker's previous Greek myth retelling, which was Silence of the Girls, and this is the second of her Greek myth retellings. This one is more focused in on the events of Euripides' Trojan women and about how the women of Troy experience the defeat of their city and are enslaved by the Greek men. And I cannot wait to read this. I know it's going to be so evocative and emotional and raw and really, really insightful. Like, I found her other books so insightful, both as a reader but also as an ancient historian. I thought it was an incredible work of literature. And again, I interviewed Pat Barker on my podcast about The Silence of the Girls, so if you're interested, I will have that linked down below. Then I swear we're almost there, but I picked up one other book in London, which is My Dangerous Duke by Galen Foley, a book in the Inferno Club series. So this is a historical romance book in a series and by an author I've never read before, and I'm always on the hunt for more historical romance authors I can fall in love with, because, you know, I'm going to run out of Tessa Dare books soon. So I picked this up in the Beg Waterstones at Piccadilly, which I think is, if not the biggest bookstore in Europe, definitely the biggest bookstore in the UK, and what that means is an incredible range of books, including a whole romance section, which I think is so rare to find in physical bookshops, actual dedicated romance sections. Sure, you get SFF sections and sometimes horror sections and crime sections, but you never seem to get romance sections. It is so underrepresented by bookshops, despite the fact that it's a massively popular genre, and I do think some of that just stems from literary snobbery. So it was just such a pleasure to find an entire section dedicated to romance that I knew I wanted to find something that I didn't know of and could try for the first time that I wouldn't have discovered any other way, and this was the one that appealed to me. And last but not least, I actually paid a visit to the newest bookshop in Edinburgh, which is Rare Birds. So very recently, Rare Birds have opened a bookstore in Stockbridge in Edinburgh, which is dedicated to selling books by women. So Rare Birds were previously a book subscription service, and they are still a book subscription service, but they also have a physical store, which is so wonderful, and I'm so pleased that they have come to Edinburgh. I actually most recently uploaded another book shop tour of Edinburgh, sharing some of my favourite bookstores, including Rare Bird, so if you're interested I will link that down below as well, while the description of this video is going to be chock full. And I had to pick up a book. So I picked up How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie, which just sounds brilliant. The back literally just reads on a sticky note: to-do list, kill my family, make a claim on their fortune, get away with the above, and adopt a dog. Which was it, that was all I needed to sell me. Plus, this is actually the book club read for my friends and I's book club on Zoom. So a few friends and I read a book together every 6 weeks or so, and this is the one we're going to be reading together, so I can't wait to read that with them. And that, I promise, brings us to the end of this book haul. Yes, we've gotten through all the books. Somehow I need to fit these all on my bookcases, but I'm very pleased to have them all here and I'm excited to read them all. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books or are planning on reading any of these books and what you think about them, or if there are just any other books that have come out recently that you're super excited for and you think I should know about. Until next time though, happy reading, and I'll see you again soon. Bye everyone.